So I'm going to tie what I'm calling a demonstration fly. It's going to be colorful. In fact, so colorful I'm calling it the Phoenix fly. It's going to have oranges and yellows in it. It's not following any particular pattern. I'm just trying to use this demonstration fly to practice some of the basic fly tying techniques. Now, when you place the thread onto the hook, you remember you want to do it very perpendicular, and you want to hold on to this left hand thread and hold it tight, but not tight enough to break it. And you want to go over the top of that thread, and within 2 or 3 wraps, it's on. We begin with the tail. And for this Phoenix fly, I'm going to use basically how I tie a woolly bugger tail. We use, for woolly bugger tails, marabou and some flashabou. Now, I like to have a pretty full tail. So what I do is I tie some marabou in, then I tie some flashabou in, and then I overtop it so that the flashabou is inside the marabou. If you don't wish to do that, you just make one. You put the flashabou on first, and then the tail. But here, watch this. Here, now I measure it. The length of the shank is about this far. The tail should be about the length of the shank. Hold in my right hand, and I transfer it to my left hand. I make sure that the thread is right at the curve of the hook. I come up, I pinch, I come down loosely, come straight up. Don't pull too hard if your thread isn't strong enough, and come straight up. And now we've got this first marabou on there. And then what I like to do, you can overwrap that if you want, but here's some flashabou. I'm going to use 3 strands because I'm going to make it 3 times longer than I need. I'll show you why in a minute. 3 strands. And I'm going to lay it on the shank of the hook, right about halfway. I'm going to tie it down using my pinch method. And then when I get it on, I'm going to bend this material that's in front of the fly back over the top of itself. And that stuff is not going to come out. See, that's a good way to bind it down. Then I'm going to take the marabou, and I'm going to take a little bit more of it, this time from the side. I'm going to measure it here, okay. Come over here, I'm going to cut it real close. And do the pinch method. Straight up. And now I have this fine looking marabou tail with the flashabou kind of coming out of it in the center. I'm going to carefully cut this flashabou without cutting any of the marabou. And that's my tail. Since I'm going to eventually be putting a hackle here, saddle hackle, and going back to the end, I need something to use to tie it down. It's going to be this wire, a piece of copper wire. So that's going to go on next. And the copper wire, I'm just going to lay right on top of the shank. I don't even need to do a pinch on it because it's kind of stiff. It's that harder material. And I'm going to have that thing just hanging out here ready to go. For the next part, normally on a woolly bugger, I would use chenille. It's easy to use, and that's what most woolly buggers are made out of. But this is a demonstration fly, and I want to demonstrate tying and dubbing. So we're going to make a dub body. And I'm going to use orange, and I'm going to use the loop method. So I'm going to make a loop here, tie it in, come underneath, and it's we're done. It's very nice. Okay, it's going to be locked in there. I'm going to use my tool with the dubbing tool with the wire. I'm going to place it right there. I'm going to have ready my little container with little cotton material and water. I'm going to come over here and pull out of my box some material. I'm going to try to elongate it, and I'm going to slip it right into this triangle that we made. You remember that? There. I'm going to put a little bit more in. Open it up a little bit, pull it in, and then I'm going to twist. Twist, 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 twist. Now, this is a long fly, and this amount of dubbing isn't going to do the whole fly, but that's all right. I'm going to just use it twice. And I'm going to start right up there at the bend of the hook, take my thread out of the way, and I'm going to start wrapping. And I'm going to make some nice even wraps here. And it's going to be a fluffy fly. All right, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to, you remember how you put the thread underneath, come over the top a couple times, and that ties it down. Now, I'm going to do this all over again, so I'm going to cut that little tail off of the first loop. Now I'm going to make a second loop, and I'm going to go underneath it, and it's going to be a nice loop. I'm going to put my spring-loaded thing back, grab some material, put a little moisture on me, and slip this in. I think that's going to be maybe a little bit more. You can always cut it off. Just slip it in, make it in that little triangle, and start twisting. And you're making your own chenille, in a way. All right. Make sure the thread is ahead of it, and just go over and make some real nice wrappings. Come underneath, twice, and tie it off. Cut off not your tying thread, but just this loop. And there we have a dubbed body. Real fluffy. Maybe I will take my little device that we have with Velcro and brush it up a little bit. It's kind of fun. Pull out some of those threads. Yeah. The next thing we want to do is to tie in a saddle hackle. And we want to wrap it from the front to the back, woolly bugger style. I made one here. I cut it, just enough stem there. And I'm going to put it in where I think it's kind of hard to tell, but this looks like the lighter side and the darker side. So I'm going to put it the light side facing this way. Put it between the thread here and the shank on the right hand side, so you can go over the top of it like that, and you're in. Okay, now I'm going to use this hackle pliers right there. So Sometimes I don't use it, but for this demonstration I am going to, and I'm going to put it right on the tip. Like that, okay? And when I wrap, I'm going to do about 5 wraps, and I want it to be very even. So I want it to look good, even, same distance, same distance. That takes some practice. All right. Now you remember that wire that we put on? All right. We're going to use this wire like just the thread that we have. We're going to bring it underneath, come up underneath this hackle tip, come over the top. Now it's bound in. And when I move this wire forward, I want to do a little wiggling here so that I don't wrap down any of these beautiful little hackles. So I'm being very careful and wrapping it forward, not wrapping down the hackle till I come to the front. Presto. I'm going to come underneath, which is the standard way to tie in all materials. 2, 3 times. Good. I'm going to cut the wire, and I'm going to cut this very tip off. I don't want that tip showing. Now, the last step is to make a beautiful head. I want any material that might be sticking out cut off before I do that. I'm going to make a head that is kind of cone-shaped before I tie any half hitches on there. I'm going to bring the material back like this, make sure I've got it all bound down, and then I'm going to make myself this beautiful little cone head. And it's done by wrapping. Okay. There's a few little hairs that are sticking out. Now, by rights, I would normally use a whip finish either with this tool or with my fingers, but I didn't teach you that. So we're just going to use half hitches, and we'll teach you the whip finish in the next series. Remember, we take our 2 fingers, this, come down, twist, put my pointer finger and bring that line, that thread underneath, come up, take out my middle finger and the thumb, bring them together, and pull. And notice I bring it kind of down at this thread down at an angle, and because I don't want any of these hackles to get caught by accident. So I come in at an angle and make a couple of those, and just like that. Okay. The final step is to put head cement onto the head. I like to use Sally's Hard as Nails for that, for my head cement. When I tie my flies, I like to tie like a dozen of a fly at one time, and maybe it's all woolly buggers or something like that. And then I carefully do all the head at that time. I always like to hold my fly vertically and to bring my head cement up and put it on both sides of the fly, all sides of the fly. So that if when the head cement goes down by gravity, it goes away from the eye, not toward the eye. And that allows me to then have a nice clean eye. And that's how you tie a fly. Enjoy.